Welcome to An Unconventional Life, a podcast where we share stories about the crazy 1% out there who earned their doctoral degrees and then went on to use them in crazy, cool, unique, and unconventional ways. Here's your host, astrophysicist turned teacher, author, dissertation coach, and more, Dr. Russell Strickland.
Hello and welcome to An Unconventional Life. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Strickland, the founder and CEO of Dissertation Done. And I have with me today Dr. Kathy Gruver. She is an award-winning author, public speaker. She has been an actor in the past. She's been on the Dr. Phil show. I can't wait to ask her about that. She's had a book that's come out very recently, one of many. And I just can't wait to talk to you about all the exciting things that Dr. Gruver has been doing since and because she earned her doctoral degree. Dr. Gruver, welcome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. I'd like to let folks know that today's episode is brought to you by Dissertation Done. So if you are an adult doctoral student and you are getting ready to start the dissertation process, reach out to us for some proactive guidance and support. It's the best way to get through as quickly as possible. Everybody needs a coach. And since you haven't done this before, best thing to do is to reach out and get some help from someone who's been there before. But if more likely, you're kind of slowed, stalled, or just plain stuck in the dissertation process, again, you can reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done. And for those of you who have been through the dissertation process, you're out there and you want to operate in the expert space and enjoy some of the amazing opportunities that Dr. Gruver is going to be talking with you about here today. Reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/book, and we will help you become a published author, which is by far the best way to really, truly establish your credibility. I mean, after all, you will have literally wrote the book on your area of expertise. So you can reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/book to find out more about that. Again, Dr. Gruver, welcome, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk to you today.
Awesome. Well, I like to start with most folks by asking, what prompted you to make this crazy decision to go get a doctoral degree? Not a lot of us do, and then not a lot of us are successful once we make that decision. So what was it that had you take the plunge in the first place?
Yeah, my whole life has been following the breadcrumbs. So all of this just sort of unfolded on its own. I started out as an actor, and then I moved into healing profession from there. So I was doing massage therapy, and I realized that my clients were looking for a true health practitioner, not just someone to stick an elbow in the spot that hurt. So I was doing more studying anyway, and I was just really having this pull, this sort of like tap on the shoulder of what's next. I looked into chiropractic school. I was like, I don't want to do that. Acupuncture, though I love having it done, did not appeal to me at all to do. And then I found this thing called naturopath. And I was like, oh my God, I totally want to be in it. This looks great. This is perfect. So I started with a school doing a naturopath program. And as I was doing the program, I realized that the books they were recommending that we had to use for textbooks, like my library was filled with them already. And when I finished the traditional naturopath program, I got something from them saying, hey, we have this master's and PhD program. And I went, oh, yes. Because I wanted to say yes for things. And I'm a lifetime learner. Like I went from the PhD to hypnotherapy to coaching to, so it's like, I will never stop learning. And what was so great about it.
When you were saying that, I went back to school and my library already had all the books there. I'm like, that's awesome.
Right. So like, I'm going to read the books anyway. Why would I not work towards, this illustrious piece of paper that we got?
Absolutely.
In so many ways, it was life-changing, just going through the process of having to do this. And I remember clients who were doing their PhD and they would be on my table and they'd be freaking out about their dissertation. And I'm thinking, what's the big deal? Like, why are you so stressed? And then I went through it and went, oh, that's why you were so, that and buying a house were the two things where I went, what's the big deal? I know now. So I just said yes. I took those opportunities when that presented itself, and I said yes, I'm going to do that.
Well, I think that's awesome. I've long held the belief that I'd rather regret something I did than something I didn't do. I went through the doctoral degree process myself as a traditional student right out of college, and worked on that for a number of years until my dissertation advisor actually died in a plane crash. And that prompted me to make some life decisions. And I pulled away from it at that time because I felt that was the right thing for me to do. But then I felt that calling still of I want to finish this thing. I ended up finishing my doctoral degree in a completely different field. So I didn't finish it. I started over again.
Wow.
But I still think that when you're seriously considering going into a doctoral degree, you've already got the bug, and you identify yourself as a doctor, whether everybody else in the world does or not. It's something that you're going to be driven to, and you're going to be called to until you get it done. So, so yeah, the saying yes part makes sense. What about, like you said, the clients on the table were all complaining about their dissertation projects, and you were like, "What's the big deal?" And then
I had to write one, and because mine was more, it wasn't traditionally, it wasn't like a English or biology, or it was alternative medicine. So when I got my master's, I had the option of either doing more practicum kind of stuff or writing the thesis. So what most people do is they take their thesis, they turn that into their dissertation. Well, I didn't have a thesis. I went the opposite route. So when I did my dissertation, I was really starting from square one. And to throw things in to make it even a little more stressful, the school that I was attending announced it was shutting down.
That's always fun.
So while I was trying to finish up my last two classes, I then had to start a dissertation that I had a limited amount of time to finish. So there was this extra.
Teaching out. They were going to let you finish. You didn't have to go around. Okay, that's
but I had to do it in a certain amount of time, which was so incredibly stressful. And I remember sitting there typing, and I'd start to cry. And my now ex-husband, he would come over and put his hands on my shoulders. He goes, "Are you okay?" And I went, "No, I can't write anymore." And he goes, "I think you have to." And I just remember sitting there sobbing because I could not put one more word on the page. It was so stressful. But having that dissertation, my 160 something pages of just gold, led to the books. I mean, it prompted me to write 2 of the books that I have. So, it was, and the research I did, it was life-changing. So I don't regret a second of it. I wish the process would have been smoother, but it makes us stronger.
I don't know how many people I've ever talked to, and I've talked to a lot, who find that this is a smooth process. I think that it's difficult by design, and in a lot of universities, it is made more difficult or less smooth, I think, by design as well. You don't find a whole lot of people who come on and say, "Well, I had this great advisor who just shepherded me through the whole process, and everything made sense, and I knew what to expect, and there were no surprises." I'll be surprised when I hear that story. It's out there, I guess, but
I have to say, my advisor was amazing. And she really had to do so much support because, again, I had a limited amount of time. So she was a total cheerleader. The days I called her and said, "I cannot do this anymore," she's like, "Kathy, you can. Here's what you need to do. Turn this in. Let's make these corrections." Da, da, da. What was so hard for me, Russell, was I'm so used to writing fiction, or I write in the first person. I write very casually. I tend to dictate my books, so they sound very as if I'm reading them. Well, you can't do that during your dissertation. You can't use contractions, and you can't say "I," and you can't say "we." And so I think that was the hardest thing for me was switching that to formal, very collegiate writing when I had done that for 15 or 20 years out of college. So that was, I think, probably one of the toughest things for me was the style of writing is so not the way I write.
It's one of the things that a lot of students, I think, find very, very difficult is that very formal, very archaic style of writing. APA has started to loosen up lately. You can use first person, which is good. I grew up without, you use third person. You talked about the author when you were referring to yourself writing a paper. And really, that's confusing, right? The author of what?
Who are you talking about? Which author? I didn't see that in the notes.
Make sense and just say, "Hey, I did this." Yes, it doesn't interject a little bit of personal into the process, and the process is supposed to be about the work. But the fact of the matter is, I did this, so say that.
Exactly.
But that's one of the things that we find our students, struggle to get into that mode. And then when they turn around, they want to write a book like now you've become so prolific at writing. Then they have to shake themselves out of that mode again and go back to now writing in a conversational tone because no one wants to read a dissertation.
No.
Your advisor doesn't want to read your dissertation. I had a student that I asked a lot of my students at dissertation done, "How many people do you think are going to read your dissertation when you graduate?" And one person thought about it and he said, "1." It's like, "You talking about your mom?" It's like, "Yes, your mom's not going to read your dissertation."
No.
She'll say she read it and she's so proud of you, and you're not going to call her out on it because
Right. Yeah. Well, what about that study I did on page 12? Yeah.
you had 12 pages. Wow.
Yeah. Good job.
Really cool. So I'm going to tell the people down at the coffee shop, your dissertation was 12 pages.
Yeah.
So what was it like? You mentioned that obviously you were under the gun in terms of getting things done. Besides the harsh and imposing deadlines, were there any other things that really stood out as obstacles that you had to overcome?
Yeah. I think not putting the deadline aside, it was just the time working full time. So I'm also the type of writer where I write when the urge strikes me. Like, I'm not one of those people that can be butt in the chair every day from 8 to 9 to write. That's just not my process. And it had to be. So I would wake up in the morning and I'd get on the computer and write, and then I'd put on a completely different hat and I'd go see clients all day. Then I'd come home and eat dinner, and then I'd sit down at night and write. Times when I didn't want to be writing. And I think that was probably one of the hardest things for me is, if I feel like writing, I can tear out page after page after page. If I don't, it seems like a nightmare. And it's not writer's block. It's, I'm not in that ego state to write right now. And I had to be. I actually
that is the tough part, because we tell all of our students to do that exact same thing. You just, this is a job. You have to do the job. It's not an inspirational thing. It is a getting it done thing. And I know that people who like to write, when the inspiration strikes them, it can feel very, very foreign. But I haven't come up with a better way to do it yet, because if you wait until the inspiration strikes, who knows when you're going to earn that.
Right. Yeah. It'll be the night before it's due, like those term papers I did in school. Yeah. So I think it was that, and which is the formalness of it. You know, the fact that I had to have it done at a certain time in a certain way. I think that was just what was so challenging for me to do it, finding the time in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I remember after weeks of writing, when I finally got to get back to dance class for an hour and just like do my extra, it was a joy. You know, I loved having the space that I created to do that. It kept me sane.
So what was the big thing? Like, after you graduated, what was the best part of graduating, finishing the dissertation and graduating?
The day the diploma showed up,
Okay.
was actually pretty exciting. And I remember like holding it up in front of my door and pointing and like taking pictures. And my assistant at the time put DR on a Post-it note and stuck it on the nameplate on my door.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's still there. So there's still Post-it note doctor, and then it says Kathy Gruver on it. I've never taken it. It's been years. I've never taken it down, because it's just that reminder of, oh, I did that thing. You know, it was really, it just to have that sense of accomplishment.
Great commercial for Post-it note people at 3M too, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Years it's been up there.
It's been up there for, well, sure. Well, they didn't sell more, because I just kept that one. But no, just that it's such a huge accomplishment, and you're met with such respect and adoration. And what people who know what it is going through it, it's like, wow, good for you for doing that. So
yeah, I gotta say, as you were saying that, I was thinking back, I don't remember receiving my diploma. I remember the conference call. So it was done over the phone. I remember the conference call. I remember, congratulations, Dr. Strickland, at the end of my defense. I remember that very clearly. I remember going halfway across the country to my commencement with my 8-month-old firstborn in tow. It was awesome. We have one of my favorite pictures still to this day. I have 3 kids, thousands of pictures of them, is me holding him. He's wearing the silly hat, and I've got the gown and the hood and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. But I honestly don't remember getting the piece of paper. It's over there. It's hanging on the wall. It's real pretty.
Okay, you did get one.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
I don't remember getting it. That wasn't the moment for me. That wasn't the aha. It was, for me, it was the conference call, really, because that's the thing that was, that's the thing that meant something, basically. I guess technically getting my transcript in was the thing that meant something too, because that counts. The piece of paper doesn't, but the transcript does.
Actually, that's true. That getting the transcript was, and then I ordered so many copies, because I knew, I was like, the school's not going to be here. I better get a bunch of these. So I've got like 20 copies of my transcript, all sealed with the school name and all that kind of stuff. So
we had a few students that were with Argosy when they closed down a few years back, and that was one of the things that we were trying to find out about, is how will they get transcripts, and I forgot how they're doing it, but they actually did have something in place where folks can order them in the future, so that's a good thing. But lots of interesting things you have to to be aware of, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so you graduate, you get the cool piece of paper. You mentioned you get to start going back to dance class. What other opportunities start to blossom at that point once you have that first name doctor?
It's a perception thing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, quite honestly, the books that I wrote after the dissertation weren't any better or worse than the ones I wrote before. But as soon as you have those initials, people perceive you differently, and you begin to be taken more seriously as a speaker, as an author, as a practitioner. Of course, then also the jokes came of, can you write me a prescription? Can you get me out of work? No, not that kind of doctor. So yeah, and for me, it was not only the learning, but it really was about the credibility, because I knew that would help me in my writing and in my speaking.
Right.
So, that was part of why I did it.
Yeah.
Not only, again, I was reading those books anyway. So let's do an official program and let's learn in that more formal setting than what I was getting in my own living room.
And that's really what I was thinking too. I got my, as I mentioned, I was studying in another field. Ended up moving away from that field when my advisor died. Started career in another area and began growing in that area, but I had no formal educational background there whatsoever. And so I could either go get a master's degree in that area, or I already had a master's degree with the doctoral work I'd been doing. I'll go ahead and just enroll in a PhD in that field, because it'll pay, out in terms of credibility and things like that, opportunities to teach and things like that just wouldn't be at that master's level. So it was a little more difficult, I guess, but well worth it.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's such an interesting choice. And it's to me, it's kind of exciting that you left that one program and then went back to it when you had something you were passionate about. I remember talking to a student, she was at UCSB, and she was doing her PhD the same time I was. And we were talking about how hard the program was. And, she's actually 22, and I, at that point, was in my late 30s. And she said, boy, it must be really nice to be working on your PhD in something that you like. And I went, I'm sorry, what? And she said, I hate psychology. And I went, hang on. I said, you already finished your master's. You're in the process of getting your PhD in psychology and you hate psychology? I said, why are you doing this? And she said, it's my parents. They're pushing me to get a PhD. And I thought, what a horrible waste of time and money. And I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, what do you really want to do? And she said, oh, this sounds dumb. And I said, no, this doesn't tell me. She goes, I think I want to be a baker. And I said, really? She goes, I love baking. I'm really good at it. I think that's what I want to do. And I said, well, have you ever worked in a bakery? And she said, no. And I said, I have an assignment for you. She goes, okay. I said, do you have to get a summer job? She said, of course, my parents make me. I went, okay, right, yeah. We have so many bakeries in town here in Santa Barbara. I said,
job is this year.
Right, exactly. I said, I want you to go to one of the bakeries, get a job, if nothing else, get an internship, work for them for a day, and just see what you think of it. And she went on her way. I didn't see her for months. 6 or 7 months later, summer had passed. She shows up at my office. She's there for another session. And she goes, Kathy, you changed my life. And I said, really? What? Great. What did I do? She goes, I worked in a bakery this summer. Yeah. I said, oh, that's great. What did you think of it? And she looked at me, she said, I effing hated every second of it. I went, oh my God, really? What that did, and she got jazzed about psychology. She now works with women with eating disorders because she had a history of that as well. And that she would have regretted her entire life, like you said, regret the things you do rather than what you don't do. She would have always wondered, should I be running a bakery? And that helped give her clarity. So now, to me, it's like, try these things out.
Bakery for a day, because she might show up and they'll have her handing out the pretty little cupcakes and everybody will be happy and all that kind of stuff. No, get up at like, 3 o'clock in the morning and bring the wheat in.
Yep, and make bread and serve it. She hated it. And she realized she wanted that to be a hobby. Yeah. And she really wanted to pursue her PhD. She found that passion by elimination, which is really kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, you got to come to it on your own. I know we had a guest on the podcast not long ago who it was expected in his family. You're going to get a doctoral degree of some sort.
Yeah.
And if you just completely flake out, then, we might consider a JD to be okay. But it's going to be an MD, a PhD, that's the expectation. And that wasn't his choice initially. And he went through a very different path for a number of years, but then he came back to that in part because of exposure, I think, but then also because he found that path for himself, not because of what he was told, what he was dictated. And that was one of the themes of our conversation, was how choice is very, very important. It's important in the work he does now. So
Absolutely. It's key. I mean, you have to know what you want, and then you can go about getting there.
now, one of the nice things about a doctoral degree, though, is even if she didn't really like psychology, people will believe you about anything you say once you have a doctoral degree. So you can kind of choose your field at that point. I mean, obviously, make sure that you know what you're talking about, know what you're doing. You have to be respectful of that power that you have. But you can get a PhD in psychology, not enjoy psychology, and go and do high-level work somewhere else, in business or social work, or any number of other things.
Absolutely. But in the moment, she found it miserable until she realized she didn't want to be a baker. And that was just the fact that I had suggested to her she do that. That's just always one of the highlights of my interaction with some of my clients. I look back at that and go, wow, you helped.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and whenever you hear back from someone that, hey, you helped me, that's always awesome, right? Because that's what I found, that so many of the doctoral students that I work with, and the folks who've earned their doctoral degrees that I talk with on the podcast, that's really their why. And I tell folks all the time, you got to find your why. Why are you doing this? What is it that you want to accomplish? And most people want to help people somehow. They might have a very specific person in mind, a very specific way of helping them in mind, or they might just generally want to contribute, want to make the world a better place. And I find that just consistent across so many of the people I talk to. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
What was your why behind this? I know you mentioned you were already kind of geeking out on material anyway, but beyond that, in terms of actually getting an education and getting into this field, what do you want to accomplish in the field?
Well, it was exactly what you just said. It really was to help more people. One, the more knowledge I have, the more I can help the people that are in front of me, whether it's in an audience or one-on-one. And if I'm taken more seriously, then I will be able to book more speaking gigs, to sell more books, to get in front of more people. So it was that dual purpose of getting taken more seriously and gaining the knowledge. I picked up a book. I was like, I haven't read a book in a while. I picked up a book last night that's just reading the first 2 chapters already gave me some ideas of how to help 2 of my clients. That's awesome. I just wholly nerd out on that stuff. I have a whole medical library of stuff. And if so many people call me and go, do you know anything about this? Do you know anything about that? It's like, I want to be a resource. And if I don't know it, I have a book that tells me, or I can at least refer them to the right source of where they can get good knowledge on that. So that's what I'm here for, is to help people, no matter all the professions I've had, I think, except maybe working at Domino's Pizza, has been helping people. So
that's really cool. I really appreciate that. When you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing right now, how is it that you're helping people, and what is it about that work that you really enjoy so much now that you have your doctoral degree?
Yeah, so I continued on after the PhD, and I got my certification as a hypnotherapist. That's something that I've always loved to do. My PhD, my doctorate, it's a PhD in natural health with an emphasis in mind-body medicine. So my dissertation was all about stress, the mind-body connection. I did a bunch of studying at Harvard with the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine, just with the masters of stress and mind-body medicine and mindfulness. And I love that aspect of it. And that goes hand in hand with the hypnosis, which I've actually been playing with since I was a kid, and finally thought, I'm doing this thing, I should probably know what I'm doing in this thing. So started seeing clients with that. And then now I'm doing a lot of coaching. So the majority of my one-on-one practices, mostly coaching with a little bit of hypnosis. I tend to do pain management, pre and post-op, anxieties, smoking, which is not my favorite thing, but I do because that's what everybody comes to us for. And I still have a little bit of smattering of massage clients, actually. One of the great things that came out of 2020 for me with COVID was my practice was shut down, which I had a couple panics about. And then I realized, I wanted to cut back on the massage anyway. So it was self-selected by, I have clients that went, I'm not leaving the house, I'm not coming in, I'm not. And so what I've been left with are these phenomenal handful of clients that I would love to keep seeing anyway. It allowed me to build my coaching practice and my hypnosis practice. And now the speaking is coming back. So the writing is, sort of a side thing, but the speaking and traveling around and doing talks, and then the one-on-one practice in my office or via Zoom is what I'm doing now.
Of having your doctoral degree, or having gone through this dissertation process, is learning how to be resourceful and flexible when things change.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about your experience, but for so many people, you start off moving in one direction on your doctoral journey, your dissertation, and someone at some point decides that you should be going on a slightly different direction. And when the world makes that decision for you, like happened last year, a lot of people had a lot of trouble and they went under. And that's when we decided to start working with folks on writing their books, because you can either like veg out to Netflix all day, or you can say I'm an author.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really great point. And, for the first couple of weeks, it was the first time I had time off in years. So I was playing Pokemon with my boyfriend, and I was laying in the hammock, and I was binging on Netflix, and we'd go for day trips. And then part of me, my Capricorn part went, why don't you do something? And I went, oh, geez, okay, I'll write my next book. But it took me a while. I did a lot of laying around and sitting in that stillness and reevaluating before I sat down and worked on book number 8. But it was about that pivot and that, looking at the situation as it is now and what can I do with this information kind of thing.
Well, the laying around seemed to be the default for so many people. And those who weren't cued into the mindfulness like you are thought, this is just great, right?
Yeah.
My kids, one of the things that they, I think, don't like about the pandemic is, I'm here in North Carolina. We had, I want to call it a snowstorm, but it was an ice storm recently. And traditionally, the kids would have been out of school for that period of time. Well, now they're doing something asynchronous day, which is the teachers aren't going to be in school, but you are.
Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, snow days. I grew up in Pittsburgh. Snow days were the best day ever.
Yeah. We had, and the thing is, in North Carolina, snow day means like, the weatherman's heard of snow. That's what a snow day is in North Carolina, basically. If he says, there's weather coming our way and it might be snow, all the schools are like, oh my God, we better shut down. It's gotten better lately, but it used to be you could not find bread or milk anywhere on the shelves if anybody in the news said the word snow. So we've gotten better about that lately. Yeah.
It wasn't quite that loose in Pittsburgh. We were used to our snow.
I spent some time in graduate schools in Chicago, and so yeah, you don't shut down for snow.
Yeah, no.
But so the books, how's that helped your practice? Why did you decide to write books? Obviously you're working with clients and doing fun and interesting things. What made you decide to write, and how has that changed things for you?
I always knew I was going to write a book. I thought it was going to be some funky fiction. It's like all the things I thought when I was a kid.
In the world too, though. Everybody knows they're going to write a book.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But there's this big gap between all the people who know they're going to write a book and the few that actually do.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Everything that I dreamt of doing as a child, I have done, but slightly different.
Yeah.
So I knew I'd be on stage forever. I thought it would be as an actor. Now it's a speaker. I thought I'd be on a billboard in New York. That actually happened. I thought I'd be on a magazine cover for the movie I'm doing. It happened because of the trapeze stuff that I do. So it's like everything that I've wanted has happened, but it looks slightly different. So I knew I was going to write a book. I thought it would be fiction because, I'm so creative and fabulous. And instead it ended up being the alternative medicine cabinet, which was based on actually a lot of the schoolwork I did for my PhD, because I had to do all these projects. I had to write all these client stories. I had to do all this stuff in the aspect of learning these different techniques and modalities. So I put everything together that I learned and I put it in this book. And so each chapter is sort of a standalone thing about a different health modality, which I was learning about. So that kicked off into me getting to host my own TV series. And what the guy said when we started filming the show, he said, the reason I said yes to your show, because I pitched him, he said, because you have a PhD, you have doctor before your name, but you're not this stodgy doctor. You're funny, you're dynamic, you're, well-spoken, you have an acting background. He said, where do you find PhDs who know stuff with an acting background who can talk on camera? And I went, oh, well, thank you. Cool. So I got to do that for a while. The main reason I started writing is I knew I wanted to do more speaking. And I had so many other speakers say, oh no, if you need to speak, if you want to speak, you have to have a book. And I went, oh crap, guess I'm writing a book now too. So, and now it's like tattoos. It's an addiction. It's like, you can't just stop with one.
Well, I find that seems to be true. That's one of the reasons why we're doing that with our clients, is the book is kind of the gateway drug to credibility.
Yeah, it really is.
You write a book. One of the authors that when I first was starting in business that I read everything that he wrote, he said that it had almost stopped surprising him how many people would pay him $10 for one of his books and then turn around and pay him $10,000 to read it to them, because that was how he characterized his consulting work. He would tell them exactly, here's what you do, and they would say, come in. Okay. Yeah. So now here's what our situation is. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what I wrote about in the book. I'm like, no, this is our situation. He's like, okay, you're right. It's completely different. And so they said, how do we fix it? And he's like, well, let me see. You pick up the book and okay, why don't you try this? But that happens, and it's not a bad thing. It's not that those people are silly or stupid or anything, because people also value different levels of interaction differently. So there's that as well. So if you want to coach, if you want to speak, if you want to do some of those other things, having a book out there is a way to get noticed. And then, like you said, they'll just ask you to come in and do whatever you told them about in the book. It's an easy gig.
And what's so interesting to me is when I did the first book, I hired a publicist. This guy was amazing, so affordable, so effective. And we did this great press release. He sent it out to, I don't know, the magic that he does. And I had about 50 people that wanted to review the book, have me on their TV show, have me on a radio show. And he goes, okay, so when you send them the book, send the press release along with it, send this cover letter. And I went, I'm sorry, what now? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, when you send them the book, and I said, no, I have to give books away. Yeah. And he goes, well, yeah, that's how they're going to review the book. And I said, no. I can't give that, because I had just put all this time and money into doing this book. And he goes, let me guess, this is your first book? And I said, yeah. And he goes, Kathy, by the time you get to your third book, you're going to realize this is the best business card ever. Yeah. And you're going to hand them out to people. And sure enough, by the time I got to my third or fourth book, I'm like, oh, here, take this one, take this one, take this one. It became a calling card, and that's sort of what and it was a smaller book, and it was more affordable. But it's either that kind of thing or back of the room sales. I have literally sold out every book I brought after talks, because people want to take a piece of you home. Right. So having the book for the back of the room stuff is a huge part of the speaking business.
And then the next thing is, well, it depends on how you set things up, but within the book, you tell them how to get in touch with you. Here's how I can do not just speaking, but coaching and other things with you. That's what we drive home with our authors is that, listen, if you make absolutely $0 on your book, don't worry about it. Don't cry about it. It's perfectly fine. If you lose money on giving away your book, it's okay, because that's how you get people to want to work with you in a more intimate, more beneficial, more lucrative way.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you think you're going to be a multimillionaire with your book, it's not.
Yeah. Good luck.
It's just not. I mean, it's just not. So few people are able to make a living with a book. And if it's a self-published book, I think the average self-published book sells less than like 300 copies or something like that. But it's not about that. It's about the credibility. It's about passing on information. This is why when I'm coaching people who are writing books, I say, what do you want? Why are you writing this book? If it's a vanity project, if you think you're going to do one as a back of the room thing, don't try to find some big high-end publisher. They don't want to talk to you. Right. Get it out there, put in it what you want to put in there to help people, to reach people. That's what the gift of that is.
And going back to that why is so important again. But for folks who think about, well, I'm only going to sell 300 copies of the book. If you got 300 copies of your book into the hands of the right people, how much could that do for a coaching business? That sort of thing. So it can be very, very worthwhile. Just don't think of it in terms of, some of the vanity metrics that people talk about. We can figure out how to make your book a bestseller if you want to, but that's really a vanity thing. Getting it into the right hands, getting the right people looking at it, thinking about it. That's the key.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
So what's the one thing that you would say has happened to you since you graduated that you would have never predicted before you earned your doctoral degree? Is there something that's been just a complete and total surprise or shock to you where you're doing this now and this was not on the radar at all as you were planning on getting your degree?
Oh, I honestly don't think so. I mean, who knows? Who knows if something happened because of that, and I don't know that's why it happened. I do remember standing at a conference in Sacramento, and I had my booth, and I had my couple books, and I had my little banner that said Dr. Kathy Gruver, Ph.D.
Mhm.
And my niece was there helping me. I was there to do a big talk, and they gave me a booth to set up with my books. And this guy walks up to the booth, looks at it, reads the sign, and goes, "I don't believe in PhDs," and walks away. I went, what? Like, I'm not a ghost. I'm state. What do you not believe in PhD? So I mean, like, occasionally I would get stuff like that. And you're like, I don't even know what you mean by that, sir. But yeah, for some reason that was weird.
Yeah, that's an onion
But
that needs to be peeled back quite a lot.
yeah, and I didn't want to engage. That wasn't on my list of things to do that day. No, I think it's just
I wearing a T-shirt not long ago that said, what did it say? It was something like "Science doesn't require you to believe in it." Something along those lines.
Right. Yeah,
And,
this was
I'm
like,
like, no, I have the doctoral degree. You don't have to believe in it. It's
how do you not believe in that? That was just the weirdest thing to me. So no, I just think that the seriousness, you know, because I've been on radio shows where they say, here we have to say Kathy Gruver, Dr. Kathy Gruver, and it's like, it's okay. You don't need, I don't find it to be that serious. I know people that have their PhD that you need to call them doctor. I mean, it's like, that's what they want. And after seeing how hard it was to do that, how much work you put in, I kind of get it. I don't require that though. But yeah, it's
when you're being addressed professionally, I think it's a good thing to do. I don't think you should be so demanding. but
yeah.
But I think with the show that you're talking about, there's also this halo effect. They want to make sure that they're getting the glory of we're good enough to have a doctor on our show.
True. Yeah.
So they want to make sure that they're publicizing that as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about it that way. But they, I've had people apologize for not addressing me that way. It's like, I'm not that strict. I'm not that strict about it. But yeah, no, it's.
What do you think of the whole, it's been a while now, but a few weeks ago, Dr. Jill Biden, there was a guy who I don't even remember his name, and I don't want to offhand. I did a little research on my note, kind of what his backstory was, but he kind of upbraided her about why would you use that title? And the fact of the matter is she's an instructor at the college level. It's appropriate in most circles to use that title. What's your take on that from a standpoint of just the degree itself, and then what that has to say about women and their place in society with that degree? I mean, how do you react to that? Because I know I have my thoughts on it.
Yeah, there's that just opens up a whole can of worms. I remember when that happened. I did not read about it. I did not want to. It just infuriates me, stuff like that. I think there's still a huge part of society that looks at this traditional roles of, women can't be doctors, they're the nurses. Women are the teachers and the assistants, the secretaries, they're not the CEOs. I think that's a fading perspective. I think that evolution happens because a new generation comes up and just knows things differently. So I think as I see other generations coming forward, that's not the case anymore. We're going to have to wait for sort of that top elder people to maybe go away and die out. But as I see the younger generations coming up, I see complete shift in perspective on that sort of thing. So I don't want to say temporary, but it is. I mean, eventually we'll age ourselves out of that.
A lot of big societal shifts happen is the people who believe certain things, they don't change their beliefs, they just die.
Yeah.
And new beliefs are born in the next generation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I tried to give this the benefit of the doubt because I don't go around insisting that my, kids' school teachers call me doctor, or, their friends' parents, or any of that kind of stuff. And so I was thinking, well, okay, I get it. But then, when I read a little bit about, kind of what he was saying, it just seemed like kind of like the I don't believe in PhDs guy in a sense. It's like, what, do you not believe she did the work? Do you not believe that this is a title that she earned and that she, so it was just, I felt it was one of those things, like, as you mentioned, it was an attitude that needs to go away, and hopefully it will.
Well, and Yeah, it's funny that you say, because I don't ever tell people, like, I don't introduce myself as Dr. Gruver. I never even mention it to people. So it'll typically be, they'll see my business card, or I'll say, oh, here, get in touch with me about trapeze class. And they'll go, oh my God, they don't, because I don't tell people, the people in dance class don't know my back. They don't know what I do until they see the Facebook post that says, hey, I'm on Dr. Phil. And they're like, wait, what? You're doing what? So it's like, I don't really talk about that kind of stuff. It just doesn't, I don't know. I don't think about it, I guess.
It's we have different hats that we wear at different times in our lives, different things that we're doing. And yeah, you don't need to tell, the girl or guy that's pouring your coffee, you better put doctor on, on my coffee.
I'm lucky they spell Kathy right. I'm not going to try to mess with doctor.
Get that part right, I'll be good, right? So, well, Dr. Gruver, tell us a little bit about, and I will use the title, tell us a little bit about your latest book. I know you said that it's just out, so the timing is excellent. We should have this podcast out within the next week or two, probably. So hopefully it'll still be hot off the presses. Tell us a little bit about what the book's about.
Yeah, thanks. So it's my eighth, and it's called Say What? How to Communicate Anything to Anyone. And I have a talk of the same name. It's one of my programs. And when I would do my stress workshop, which is the main subject that I speak on, I've got books that go with that. One of which is based on my dissertation, because that's what my dissertation was about. So, when they get to the back of the room after the stress talk, I have one small book that is just the 5 techniques I teach. Conquer Your Stress at Work. Everybody wants that one. Or Conquer Your Stress, which is about 45 techniques. So depending on how crazy intense they want to get with it, they can walk away with something after the talk. And I had done the communication talk a few times, and everyone's like, well, do you have a book that goes along with this? And I'm like, drat. So now I do. So it's literally, and like you said, it's not word for word my talk, but it's everything I cover in my talk. So depending on how long the workshop is, they might get everything, they might get part of it, so to have it in a different format, to be able to take it home, it's small, it's short, it's affordable. It's not some $85 tome of communication, which you could certainly write. This is $11.95, and it's like 80 pages. And it goes along with my talk. And if you're a speaker and you have your pocket talk or your key subject, have a book that goes along with it, whether it's a workbook or something that you can sell that goes along with that speech. That's what I would absolutely recommend. So that's why I wrote it. It's fun, it's funny, it's conversational. All of my books are just fun and kind of tongue in cheek, and I use naughty words, and it's really fun.
Well, I can tell that the book sounds like it would be a great read. Is it out there on Amazon? Can folks get it there? Okay.
It is out there on Amazon, and it's now on my website too.
So we will definitely link to the Amazon listing in our show notes. Your website is kathygruver.com. Is that right?
kathygruver.com.
If folks wanted to get in touch with you for any reason, talks or coaching or whatever, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so the kathygruver.com is great for finding the books and the speaking, and then kathygruver.coach is the site if you want to book a session with me to do some individual coaching. You can get to me for hypnosis through either of those. And yeah, and I see people around the world. I just love to help. So if I can help in any way, let me know. I'd love to be there for you.
That's great. We'll make sure all that gets into our show notes. So if you want to go to our blog at dissertationdone.com/blog, by the time you're hearing this, the show will be up, and you can dive into all those cool resources. Dr. Gruver, thank you so much for being here with us today. I had a blast.
Oh, thanks, Russell. I appreciate it.
And just a quick reminder to folks that today's episode has been brought to you by Dissertation Done. So if you are embroiled in the dissertation process or about to start, reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done, and we'll see if you might be a good fit for our Fast Track Your Dissertation coaching program. And if you want to get your book out there so that you can be an expert like Dr. Gruver, or maybe you are an expert and you just want to make sure everybody knows about it, then reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/book, and we'll see if our Expand Your Authority book program is a good fit for you. Again, Dr. Gruver, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And to everyone else, have a great day and go out and live your unconventional life.
This has been An Unconventional Life. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe now to keep getting inspirational stories of unconventional lives as soon as they're released. Until then, go out and live your best unconventional life.